Yeah, as been said, I'm at HTB. I have been for coming up 6 years now, I think. Long time. Joined in 2015. I've done various roles over that time, but currently I work kind of across production and worship. My role has changed quite significantly, as is true of everyone, I'm sure, through lockdown, and what that will then look like, post COVID and stuff, who knows. But I've played quite a significant role on production in the last couple of years, basically venue managing Onto Square, which is one of our sites. So we've got like a couple of main sites. We're one church, 6 sites. And so we've got Brompton Road, Onto Square. And I basically am in charge of all of the production for Onto Square, and any events that happen there. So that'll be like our alternative Easter services, our alternative carol services, and then the bigger stuff like Focus, leadership conference, all that kind of stuff. Like it's all a team effort, but obviously playing quite a key role in helping project manage that, and then actually facilitating and kind of leading the team on those events, as well as stage managing and production calling on a Sunday. And then I also play electric and head up the MD team from a worship perspective. So I kind of do a dual role on Sundays. And yeah, my role over lockdown has quite significantly changed, because I've kind of been working a lot closer with the worship team and kind of just working directly alongside them, helping project manage all of the shoots that we've been doing, and then getting that to the 2 guys that have been mixing it. And I've done a bit of mixing myself, and basically just getting it in on time and making sure that I'm liaising with creative, which is actually headed up by my wife. So it's kind of like a little bit easy because can just chat through the wall. Right, yeah. And so kind of getting all that done and figuring out how we're going to do it and what those different shoots look like throughout the last 18 months. So that's kind of a little bit about me and what I've done in the last couple of years, I guess. But
thanks so much, man. And like, I just want to say, is like, from my perspective, I absolutely love what you've been doing and what you guys have been putting out, and it's really helped me worship, like when I've come in person, but also like over online stuff and Kingdom Comes and stuff, which I know you have such a hand in. Like, it's really helped me in this time, especially, and I know it has been for you as well, a time of just such crushing pressure and deadlines and like craziness. To be able to for you to be able to provide that space for me to breathe and worship and stuff, it's really been special and crucial for me. So
thanks, man. That's really encouraging.
So why don't you tell us a bit about like where HTB are currently at, and like the approach that you're taking to live streaming? Just to give you like a bit of context, we were just catching up, some of us guys, and our church, for example, are not planning on meeting back in person till June. Matt was sharing that he's doing a night of worship. Kids of Youth are already meeting, and Beth was sharing as well. And Aaron's church, they've never met. They started in just before the pandemic and were due to launch on Easter. And so, but then other churches in the network have been leading large gatherings. So what's kind of, I know that HTB are kind of doing this hybrid thing at the moment, but it's quite a separate online experience to in person. Why don't you talk to us a little bit kind of about your thinking and how you've approached that, and kind of your next steps, if you're allowed to talk about what's
no, definitely. It's been quite a journey, if I'm honest. At the start, it was, as is true for all of us, I'm sure, pretty much just a scramble and just pretty much what can we do, how can we make this work. So it was, at the very start, it was, we're going to have to make this work from our homes, like we're locked down, it's just going to be iPhone footage. And then it became this kind of like, as things opened up, we're allowed to go back to doing services in September, but everyone was a bit like, oh, we're going to lock down again. So we decided not to start shooting the services, but to keep kind of Sunday services in person and online still very much separated, just because it was like, we have no idea. Like we can't guarantee that we are actually going to open up again. And lo and behold, we didn't.
Yeah.
So it's looked very different. That kind of journey of what does worship in particular look like, and just creating content. And we started with homes, and then we went for the big band thing, and basically did like 2 shoot days, and just did all of the content for the next kind of like 8-10 weeks, I think, in like one big shoot. And then we're just methodically working through those week to week, kind of mixing them. And then that just became so much work and so much effort. So we thought about trying to do it week to week, and then that's just not sustainable either, with the live services still going along. So we decided to just put it back and do some of the more acoustic-y style stuff. And actually, what we were met with in terms of feedback from people watching online was they much preferred that. And for them sitting in their living room at home on a Sunday morning, it was much more accessible than this kind of big band sounds coming at them. So we ran with that, and basically from like February this year up until now, that's just all we've been doing, is we've just kind of done sporadic shoot dates here, there, and shot as much content as we can, try to get like 5 or 6 weeks worth done in a couple of days, for various reasons. One of the main ones being health and safety. It's just so much easier to get everyone tested, and then you've got a 48-hour window, get everyone in the building, shoot it, get everyone out, like done. Don't have to worry about it, like testing week to week and all that kind of stuff. And then also just like resource wise, like creative are having to do talks and interviews and promo pieces for Love Your Neighbor and everything else going on. So yeah, that's where we kind of ended with the online stuff. And where we're at now is basically, how do we transition from this very much it is only online to we are going to be going back, we are back in the space, and how does that look online? So we are transitioning into, we are just going to live stream the Sunday services. And so currently where we're at as of today is we've been doing rehearsals on Wednesday evenings. We'll be getting the worship band in. We've set up a broadcast system downstairs. We've upgraded a couple of the camera systems. We've set up like a hosting studio so that we can do separate hosting for online than in the space. So we'll be doing this hybrid of 2 camera hosting from a studio, to then cutting to like a live worship, live talk, potentially ministry, and then back to like hosting for people online. So it's this kind of hybrid halfway house type thing is what we're going to end up doing. We're going to look to do that kind of July. So beginning of July is when we're going to start aiming, hopefully, to go live with the live stream. So we're basically in the process of working out all the many kinks and hurdles.
There's so much good stuff in there. Like, I think just to pick out like a few things that like you've just kind of gone over, but that will be great for people to hear, is like, firstly, just the intentionality to everything that you've done. Secondly is like, HTB, we don't know behind the scenes, but is perceived as a massive church with a massive budget. And you had to use iPhone footage like the rest of us. There's so much comparison and stuff, but you guys were kind of doing iPhones and stuff into audio interfaces, and that's kind of what all of our guys have been able to do, and have kind of, I don't know, not beating ourselves up about it, but it's great almost just to hear like the normality of your guys' approach. And yeah, just hearing like going back to that hybrid model as well. I've always kind of, whenever I've heard that idea pitched, we've spoken about it as well, is like, I always call it like the Britain's Got Talent approach. Like the people that watch, they get Ant and Dec, and they get the backstory of what's just happened on the stage, but then the people watching it in the crowd, they have no idea, sort of thing. Auditions of Britain's Got Talent I'm talking about, not the live shows. And so how did you actually kind of land as the best approach? Was that kind of like a big team decision? why have you decided that that's the best approach for you? Because some of us, stuff is all kind of back in the air of how we want online is part of what we do, and we've got a new audience there, but then there's this married with this lack of sustainability, and stuff like that. Like, how did you land on that being your way forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely being around the houses, like in terms of like, you know, leadership and what is actually going to be best, and what's possible, and talking to people like my wife of like what, you know, in terms of even stuff like Britain's Got Talent or The Voice, or I don't know, something more up Nicky Street, which would be like The One Show or something like that. Like, why do they do it like this? And I think, to like sum it up, it came down to you want people watching online, you want them to feel like they are in the room, experiencing what's happening in the room. But there are points, like touch points through the service, where it just needs to be different, where the hosting needs to be very much intentional and very much aimed at the person watching on the screen. And it's very, very difficult to stand on a stage in a church and be thinking about both the room and online. And then even just like stupid practicalities of like, do you talk to the room or do you talk down the barrel of the camera?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? And, you know, big churches like Life Church in America, like, have got it down to a T, where Craig will like literally be addressing the people in the room, and then he'll address the camera, and then like, and that's taken like years of practice for him to get to the I remember him talking about it at leadership conference a couple of years ago, actually, how like people just feedback to him how you need to do both, and he's just so aware of, and so for us, just like,
it's crazy, he does like shoulder movements and stuff to say where he's going to go.
So the camera, 100%.
So he's like signaling to the camera ops,
I'm walking this way,
I'm about to do. The guy is a genius.
It's mental. It, like, honestly, that level of detail is just like, it's like Steve Jobs level, and like in terms of preaching, like, it's just, you can't expect that from everyone.
No.
And so that's where we've kind of landed, is now, are we going to do this for however long we do live stream? Like, I imagine Nicky is never going to go back from live stream now that he's seen that there is like people that need church online. There are people that would never come to the building. They would just never walk into a random church building on Sunday. But if you offer them something online, they will click it and have a look and kind of peer through the church doors. And then there are people who physically can't get to the church building as well. And so now that he's kind of seen the need for that, he won't ever go back. We will be doing church online in some form forever. Right. Whether that looks like, you know, this hosting to camera, and like, I don't know, you know, we're just going to try it for this season. And
that's great.
See what happens. Like, we haven't bought new cameras, like, we haven't thrown loads of money at it at all. It's you know, the hosting cameras are 2 cameras that have been in Onslow Square. They're the same ones I've been using for Old Carols for the last couple of years. The only thing that we've invested money in is audio for broadcast, which we actually have been investing in over the last 18 months. So it hasn't been like, right, we need to go live. It was right, we know we're going to need to go live. So whilst we're in lockdown, let's slowly start building towards this. So it's definitely been like an intentional, we know we need to move ahead, but let's not throw all the money at this and go all bells and whistles. Let's just try it first.
Just holding it lightly, I guess.
Yeah,
you know, and that's 100%. Because, and with how stuff's changing and
totally,
you know, everything, I think that's so good. Like, and when it comes back to the hosting thing, I always think there's no point like a host in the room might be saying, oh, and it's Gladys's birthday, stand up Gladys, there's a church barbecue happening outside afterwards. It's like, well, I'm watching in Scotland and I'm part 100%. Of the community, and now I feel totally excluded. But kind of to bring it, I guess from a worship experience, what are some of the ways that you are ensuring a quality and a consistency to what you're doing online? Because a lot of these guys will have a huge kind of array of budgets. Some of the guys on this call have a production team paid. Some people will be running the words talking. What are some of the things that kind of like fundamental rules, in your opinion, of how you can lead worship well in person and online, from kind of a worship and a production perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the first thing to say would be, if you, so we do, we've intentionally been like, right, we know we're not going back, so we're going to invest in this. So we have invested in a completely separate broadcast mix. We've hired a broadcast engineer whose job is solely going to be broadcast, but the whole world of broadcasters, not just audio. He is in charge of all the slides need to go up, the opener, like he's basically producing the online experience. So we've intentionally invested in that, but very aware that not every church has the ability to do that. And so I would say, even if it's, for example, your online mix would be your front of house mix, and you're literally just taking an LR out, I would find the compromise. So even to get like super technical with it, even stuff like, if you wouldn't put reverb on the drums, you wouldn't put reverb on the vocals in the room, just do it, because it will make the online sound so much better. So like find the compromise of like what is too much for the room. So like too much reverb where it's like, oh, literally the vocals are not intelligible in the room anymore. Fine, bring it back. That's
never too much
fine.
Reverb.
Even stuff like, auto tune, using it in front of house, so you can then have it on online, because online is just so exposing for everyone. I would say don't be afraid of that, but also don't run before you can walk. So like if your front of house engineers are like not using any waves plugins or anything like that, then don't worry about it. Just do the simple stuff. Put reverb on the vocals, put reverb on the drums, put a bus compressor on the whole mix so that it glues it together, and then send that out. Like even that will sound better than just taking an LR from the desk feed kind of thing. Like and asking your front of house engineer, like making space in sound check. So you've got, here's rehearsal time, here's front of house sound check time, and then you've got 10 minutes to put your ears in and just make it sound good for online as well. Like
brilliant.
That would work. I know guys in America, they've done it that way for years before they had the luxury of separate broadcast and the ability to do that. Then there's halfway houses. So I've for HB, when we've done events and they've ended up online pre-COVID, we've used the in-ear channels. So we have a separate front of house, separate in-ear channels,
like an aux.
So you could EQ, mix, put more reverb on the in-ear channels and make that sound really good for online, and that wouldn't affect your front of house mix at all. So if you've got like two dedicated outputs, then great, make one sound better for online and one for front of house. Like there is like ways to do it that you can definitely get away with. And then there's all the way up to setting up a laptop with Logic, running something like Dante or a digital interface into it, and just buying something like the Bethel template with a bunch of those plugins, which at the face of it sounds like you'd be spending tens of thousands of pounds, but it's not. Honestly, the to get all the plugins that they use, I think it's about £800, and the template itself is about £400. And that, just literally putting your stems into that template and just running with that and barely having to touch it, would probably be a 50% increase on where a lot of churches would be. So there's even resources and tools like that where the guys who've been doing it for years and years and years have released their resource and said, hey, this is what we're doing, we want you guys to be able to use it as well. And
that's actually how we're running our mix at the moment.
Is
we're
it
running everything into the bot? So I got this X32. We had it.
Nice.
We had it anyway. It's got a USB out into Logic, and got the Bethel template. So I'm aware that like we're getting super practical, which I think is really good. and some guys will be zoning out, but we can offer additional support on this, like 100%, especially like that's something that I do every single day. In fact, that's what I'm doing after this, which is why I'm here. So it might sound like we're talking about alt stems and bus compressors and stuff, but
Yeah.
you know, it sounds more complicated, but you know, we can help you through this if you're feeling
100%.
out of your depth. And I think it's so good. You spoke about compromise, and this is off on a bit of a tangent, but I was just thinking about this is actually something that our guys struggle with a lot. Leading the production at location like Onslow Square.
Yeah.
If you guys have never been like amazing traditional building with amazing modern production. I know that at Brompton Road, especially, you do get some conflict there as to marrying kind of a modern production feel for a young audience with we're in this grade 1 listed old church building. We want to see the stained glass windows. How do you manage that? And for the guys in these calls, it's sometimes the case of like marrying the new contemporary worship sound with the old hymns, and it's all kind of the same stuff. And how do you land on compromise? What is your approach to that in worship and production?
So, I mean, we've kind of gone full circle with it at Brompton Road, right, where we for a while like put a big black drape up and built our own like LED bars and made it this like full like, you know, kind of event style looking, you know, more like the mega church, like LED wall style, all that kind of thing. We did that and very quickly realized that, yeah, but you can still see the marble, you can still see the choir stalls, you can still see the horrible 800-year-old brown carpet on stage that's the color of dog poo, all this kind of stuff. And so I think where we've landed now is stuff like there is the bare essentials, which is we need to replace the carpet. Like literally it's pulling up off the stage. Like that's just, it's a non-negotiable. We have to replace the carpet. But in terms of like stage designs and all that kind of stuff, we're just leaning back into it's a big, beautiful building, and let's get a stage design that works with that. So we've kept it to like tungsten lights, stuff like the bulbs, the sun strips that you get, like the big I forgot the name of them, but the big like filament ones and the big pars, or just all like tungsten stuff. And then getting your key light on the band like super good, so that everyone is lit really well, being intentional with where you put lights so that it looks good online as well as in the room, so that you don't have a side angle of a worship leader and there's just dead space behind them. There's just black, or there's a choir stall, or there's, you know, Joe's lunch that he's left there by accident on the choir. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, there's stuff like that where it's there's the like going too far where it's like these two things just feel really like there's tension in there. It doesn't really work, like having big LED washes and all that kind of stuff. And you imagine putting like a big LED wall up at Brompton, right? It just wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. So but there is still a way to do it that is still elevates the worship in a non-showy way, but uses the building like as an advantage as opposed to a disadvantage. So rather than looking at it as we've got this building, it's like, we've got this big beautiful building, let's show it off, let's light the pillars and let's make it look big and grand and beautiful, and lean into that, as opposed to, you know, wanting to be something that we're not. So because that wouldn't be authentic to who we are either. We are Church of England and we are in this beautiful grade, like you said, grade 1 listed building. So so lean into that and you know, make the most of it rather than trying to fight against it, I guess.
That's brilliant. And on authenticity, it's one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, like not kind of in that context, but something that I think you guys have been able to do throughout lockdown is provide authentic worship experiences. And something that I've like, just being like personal for a second, something I've really battled with is how to create something that genuinely feels worshipful and authentic when, I don't know, maybe you've got to send a demo out, which is very restrictive for people. You know, I'm talking about in those first stages where you are asking your team on an iPhone to record, like it's quite restrictive in that way. To like what you were saying of like, let's have 2 days where we pre-record 2 months worth of content. It's like, well, the world changes so much in that time. You could be singing "Oh Happy Day" and Prince Philip just died. You know, and also one thing that I've struggled with is like, actually it sounds and is a lot better if I just play all these parts and then get the team to mime them. And that again loses a sense of authenticity. It's really restrictive. How have you managed that? How are you managing that going back? And how do you have that sense of kind of accountability? Because I think you guys have got it right.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, it's interesting that you think we've got it right, because it's definitely not, from our point of view and our congregation point of view, not necessarily always felt like we have got that right necessarily, especially when we're doing the more big band stuff. Yeah, I would say that some people loved it and some people were like, oh, this doesn't feel like HTB at all. Like it feels, you know, the cameras are really high quality because it's all shot with like, you know, creatives, lovely cinematic cameras and all this kind of stuff. So it's interesting. I think that authenticity, the authentic word is like being thrown around a lot at the moment. And for me, what it came down to was, let's not do anything that we wouldn't do on a Sunday. So we're not going to like, you know, throw 7 guitar parts into this because we can go back and record over it, because that's not authentic to what we do on a Sunday. That's not what we would sound like on a Sunday, because we at maximum have 2 guitarists on a Sunday and maybe some like atmospheric stuff going on in the track or whatever, but we would never have a billion guitar parts going on. So first of all, like not doing the whole, well, we can just fill the track and make it sound amazing and get everyone to mime to it. What you saw was the band playing live, so it was all recorded. And then yes, we touched up. If someone made a mistake, we go back and we overdub that bit. Yeah. And yes, I overdubbed one rhythm guitar part to fill it out, because Dylan played, you know, a rhythm guitar part and then went to a lead part, and it suddenly felt really empty. So it was like, cool, we'll just overdub that part. But what we didn't do was like make it this really well overproduced studio sounding, like, well, we tried not to anyway. It was really difficult. Like there was a lot of tension where a lot of the worship leaders thought it felt too studio and it didn't feel live enough. And a lot of that comes from like the congregation, to be honest, and it feels live when it's in a space and you can hear the congregation singing back. And so that was a real struggle of how do we make this feel live and authentic. And so yeah, I think it just boiled down to us just being us and doing what we would do on a Sunday, doing the songs that we would do on a Sunday. The new songs that we introduced were new songs that we've been planning to introduce anyway in the coming months, like that kind of stuff. Like it was never a, will this work online? Like, does this song work online? Like, and then yeah, there is, you know, it was actually the opposite. It was songs not working in person, like Raise a Hallelujah, where the bridge is sing a little louder, and it's like, we can't sing. So it was, you know, it was actually the opposite, and that like some of the stuff we were doing online wasn't then going to translate to in the building, that was interesting. But yeah, the authentic thing, it's a really difficult question to answer, but I would just say that we just tried to keep it like us. We didn't try and do anything that we didn't feel like us. We didn't try and like like take it as an opportunity to like, oh, let's like completely redo all of the songs we would do on a Sunday and like throw loads of synths in there. And like we did that with one or two songs that were older and felt a bit tired. Absolutely, because we would do that on a Sunday. But we basically tried to approach it in the same way that we would approach worship on a Sunday, but just mix it and make it sound good for online. So that did require vocal tuning, and that did require nice big reverbs, and that did require me overdubbing a rhythm guitar part because it felt empty. But that was it as a maximum. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really helpful. And just I think something that I've come back to through everything that you've said is just discovering who you are and being who you are is always going to be enough for the people that you want to serve.
Totally.
And I think that's absolute gold. I've got two more questions. It's kind of one question in two parts, and then we'll open it up to the floor.
Yeah, sure.
So, as someone that plays in the band and is involved in production, what is one thing? So, from a production perspective, what is one thing that you would wish every person in the band would stop doing? And from a band perspective, what is one thing that like kind of really grinds your gear about production people? That's put you on the spot a bit, isn't it? But
no, it's funny. From a production point of view, it is that the most important thing to do, and you'll know this from having listening to the Bethel stems, is to get the source right. So it's more important to spend time on a Sunday getting the right microphones in the right position, getting the right tuning, making sure the vocals are warmed up, like coming in prepared, ready to go, like at 100%, not at 50% because it's 7 a.m. Like, and yeah, I know your vocals are tired, but if you don't give it full, then we don't compress it correctly. And then all that kind of stuff is like, come in intentional, everyone's ready, like the sources sound good. If that is your starting point, production can only elevate. What's really difficult is expecting production people to polish out bad musicianship or bad timing or bad tuning, or there's only so much that you can do. And we've learned that the hard way doing a lot of this like recording at home. And
very good. I spoke to a sound guy about this literally yesterday, and I asked him the same question from a sound perspective, and he answered exactly the same as you. And it's like, you know what, if your guitar is out of tune, there is no production in the world that will make your guitar in tune.
Nope.
Like, and but apply that to vocals, apply that to drum heads, apply that to, you know, if your drum kit does not sound good, it will not sound good.
Totally.
So I think that's really cool. Go on then, from a music perspective then.
From a worship perspective of production, that one's harder.
So you're obviously more lean towards production.
No, there's definitely, it's just what would I wish production would stop doing?
Or start doing?
It's really difficult because I don't want to lean into like the stereotypes, but I just think that everything's always easier and better in collaboration. And I think sometimes production can lean towards boys and girls with toys, and like, here's the newest greatest plugin that sounds amazing and all this kind of stuff. And but in doing that, it's like, yeah, but you've just eaten 15 minutes into our rehearsal time, or, you know, it goes both ways. But like, the band's ready to go on stage, like we've all got there early, we're plugged in, we're tuned, and then production's not ready to go. Like that's really frustrating as well. But then the same can be said the other way around. I think just what I would love from production and worship teams would be more the ability to critique more, like for us to not be like so worried about how we sound or our feelings and that kind of stuff, like just to hold it all very lightly. And so that means that worship can actually feed into what the mix sounds like on a Sunday, and production can feed in to, hey, you are smashing the poo out of that acoustic and it sounds terrible. Can you please just pull back? Because currently it's louder on stage than out the PA. Like
I feel like that was personal to me, mate.
Definitely wasn't. I just think more unity, more collaboration, more communication from both sides. But if I'm honest, I feel like worship can sometimes be better at that. Worship can be more like, hey, production, tell us what we can be doing better. Is my experience of like, hey, what do we need to do to get these sources better in production? Yeah, this is this. But it's very rare that I get production going, hey, worship, what can we be doing to better facilitate?
That's interesting. And I guess, sorry, I will open it up to people to ask questions, but so surely that just comes from relationship. Like obviously 100%. Like it helps having people 100%. Like you. And I think there's another girl there who I've met who's also kind of bass in production.
Yeah, Carly, yeah.
Yeah, it is like a joint world, right? But what are some of the ways that you've seen relationship really build and work between the front and the back of the room, or the front and the side of the room in production?
Yeah, like definitely doing like joint team nights and making sure that those team nights are facilitating and inputting into both teams. And so make them both fun and engaging and spiritual and refreshing, and like don't make it like so intense for all the production guys that are being, you know, working 60 hours that week because we've got an event or something and don't necessarily want to come into like a really super heavy atmosphere. But then at the same time, don't make it so light and jolly that, you know, the other people who do want to come and like receive just go, oh well, this was wasting my time. Like it's kind of getting the balance of both. Just spending time together, crossing over, like if there's production people that can play bass, like releasing them to play bass or play guitar. Likewise, release your BVs to do song words. Production always need help with song words, and some of the best song words people would be BVs because they know the songs better than Gladys, who's been thrown onto song words but there's no idea about it.